The only thing better than grinding all night for your side hustle is your roommate picking you up with Mickey D's breakfast. The perfect pickup deal.
There's a deal for every morning at McDonald's.
Right now, taste breakfast perfection when you get a warm and savory sausage McMuffin with egg for just $2.50. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with combo meal.
Hello everybody, welcome back to There Is No Off Season. It's BP's only daily Dynasty podcast, proud member of the BP Podcast Network. If you have a minute, you can give us a rating or review any of the platforms that you're listening to this, or if you wanted to drop us a question at Tino Podcast on Twitter, tinopodcast@gmail.com, patreon.com/Tino Podcast. We love you. We love to hear from you. So give us a shout. I'm Mark Berry. I'm a writer at Baseball Prospectus, and with me as always, he's the editor-in-chief at Baseball Prospectus and OG Tino contributor. It's Craig Goldstein. Craig, what's up, buddy?
Oh, just spending a lot of time doing a deep dive into the advanced analytics on why Trevor Bauer's giving up home runs.
I heard it has something to do with throwing the ball right down the middle on occasion.
I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but yeah. I'm going to spend a lot of time on this, many hours. Might throw up a few thousand words on the problem here. I guess if you had to boil it down to a single concept or sentence, it would be stop throwing it down the middle of the damn plate.
So I also think that maybe you could look into, because normally the zone is broken down into like the 9 sections. And maybe that just needs to be like 9 sections of each one of the 9 sections. So you could really dig into, where those pitches are and why they're giving up so much loud contact.
Yeah, I like where your head's at. I'm actually going to hand draw the 9 sections and then split them up. I might play a little Sudoku as I do it. We'll see.
Oh, no, that makes sense. Yeah. That's a really good idea. I look forward to this piece. That's coming out like this afternoon, right?
Yeah, definitely going to get on that immediately.
Well, I was going to mention to you before we started, it was funny. We had a chat last week, a couple weeks ago, just about some site upkeep. And so we were talking about just things before the meeting started, and I had just watched the SNL sketch of trying to socialize and talk to people post-pandemic.
Yes.
And I don't know if you have seen it or you're aware of it, but it's just people awkwardly trying to socialize and not knowing how to talk, and talking about the weather, talking about your pandemic, talking about, quote unquote, getting through it, and things are going back to normal. And I had watched it, thought it was funny, and then just subconsciously went right back into the bag of tricks when we talked, hit every single part of that on the checklist, and it was just beyond my control. So
yeah, it's definitely weird. And I at this point, I don't know. It's just like, was I ever good at socializing? Probably not. I'm just going to toss it up to like, that's how I was all the time. And it makes me feel better about myself. Probably not the case, but that's where I'm going with it.
There was more than one occasion over the weekend, over this Memorial Day weekend, when we saw people, and it was like, oh, should we do the weird elbow bump? Should we do the weird fist bump? Are we gonna awkwardly handshake or hug each other? So a lot of awkwardness that is coming, and it's probably well overdue. So I guess I'm excited for it.
Yeah, definitely.
So we were going to do a little Dynasty 5 and Dive as an ode to your podcast with Bradford, Emma, and Jeffrey. I just wrote out a few Dynasty topics that maybe we could hit and just kind of flow through these. And then obviously we were going to have to talk about Vanderpump, which is excitingly shooting footage right now. It's the light at the end of the tunnel, I think, for a lot of us, and we're looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, I have a lot of. I'm going to save them for that section. That's our 6th section. It's like we're going to start with the runner on second. Should be pretty quick, but end this podcast earlier than otherwise. But maybe the most exciting portion.
Yeah, absolutely. So usually we start with some call-ups that have happened since the last time we recorded, and there really haven't been too many of note. Basically the only one, we talked a little bit about Alek Manoah last week, but he debuted with the Blue Jays, looked really great. Now has a career ERA of 0.00 at Yankee Stadium, which is pretty good.
Yeah, can handle the New York pressure. That's good to know.
So Mike's Expert Fab came out today. We're recording this on a Tuesday, and I learned that I bid the most on Manoah in TGFBI, or like 520 some auction dollars, and I got some feedback that it was a little hot take-ish, that I liked Manoah over Pearson. I don't know. I just have liked what I've seen from Manoah. He looks kind of like an asshole on the mound, which I also really like.
A big one. It's not about being an asshole. He's just gigantic.
He's just a large man. Where are you at with Manoah? And if you wanted to expand it to Manoah versus Pearson as a prospect or as a rookie, please do. Like he looked pretty good in that first start.
Yeah, I think it's fair to be higher on Manoah than Pearson right now, just because what Pearson has shown us is that he can't really be good and healthy at the same time. Mm-hmm. I still like Pearson. I think on pure quality of stuff, I'd take Pearson pretty easily, but he can't really seem to stay on the mound, and his most successful full season experience involved a lot of alternating between 2-inning and 5-inning appearances, where he obviously that's not like a normal season in any capacity. So if you view the health kind of gap between the two players as bigger than the talent gap, I don't think that's exactly unreasonable to do. I don't think that's a really hot take. I think I'm probably lower on Manoah than you are, lower on him than a few people that I've seen. His start against the Yankees was really good. His stuff is back. I think Jarrett and Jeffrey talked about this on last night's Twitch stream, which they went through some preliminary process for updating the top midseason top 50. And the reports in the offseason, or when he was at the alternate site, was that his velocity was down and things weren't great. And that was true at the time. So that's kind of what we were working off of. His velocity has come back a fair bit. He's been, into the low to mid 90s. He looked good against the Yankees. My thought on this stuff in general is that it's one start, and sometimes you can look good against a good hitting team, and then you'll come out against, I don't know, Seattle and get, not necessarily lit up. They don't light anyone up, but maybe touched up a little bit. And that's kind of how it goes. There's often a lot of inconsistency. I think when I watched his stuff, I saw control over command. And the Yankees are in a bit of a slide. I mean, they got swept by Detroit and then lost a game to the Rays yesterday. So, they're in a little bit of a funk right now offensively. I don't know I don't mean that to take anything away from Manoah, but if there's a team that isn't missing hittable or loosely located pitches, maybe that outing goes a little bit differently. If that makes any sense. Yeah. But still, I think obviously an encouraging outing, and I think it's absolutely right and reasonable to be high on him overall. But I have him probably where we envisioned Pearson when he was pitching as a number 2 in terms of quality and stuff. I think Manoah is more of a 3 as a in the rotation.
No, that makes sense. And I think in my team context, at least for this redraft, I was just in need of pitching and couldn't
Who isn't, honestly, right now? I mean, I don't blame you. I'm in a 20-team dynasty league that allows 4 IL spots per team.
Oh, no.
And there is nobody. I just added the only pitcher I could find that I could actually add that wasn't on someone's. We also have 15-man minor league slot. And so the only one I could actually add was Matt Shoemaker.
Oh, okay.
I don't feel good about it, but like that. But like, if Alek Manoah, like if I could bid on that, it's not a fab league. But like if I could have bid, like yeah, I would go pretty heavily on him too, because I think he's going to stay up, and I think he's going to pitch a fair number of innings.
Yeah, and I think just sort of projecting for other pitching prospects that could potentially get called up, I don't know if any of them have Manoah's upside and have a realistic chance at debuting this year. And I think the benefit of Manoah is like what you said, he'll pitch this year as long as he's effective and as long as he's healthy, and so that could at least give me a little bit of volume with a good team. We'll see how he does against the Marlins tomorrow. But then he'll get challenged again. I think he's scheduled to be in Chicago against the White Sox next week. So that could be a big one against a team that is maybe a little bit more formidable offensively.
Yeah, certainly in more of a groove right now. You got to watch out for Billy Hamilton hitting home runs back-to-back games.
Yep, gotta find time to get him in the lineup. Gotta get Jake Lamb going. It works.
Gotta get Jake Lamb going has got to be one of the most oft-used phrases in his career. So yeah, no, I like him. I think that'll be an interesting matchup and one I'll definitely tune into to try and like. You don't want to make too big a deal out of one start in any capacity, like not just this one start, but any one start. But I think that'll be a really interesting challenge for him.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next topic I wanted to talk about, and you mentioned that you have given your fair share of thought to this, which is pretty fortuitous in this circumstance, is Adolis Garcia. He has just been on a tear lately. He finished the month of May hitting 312, 348, 633. He currently is 16th in DRC plus in the entire league, which is pretty incredible. That's one spot ahead of like Xander Bogaerts. So that's the kind of company that he's keeping right now. I was going to toss some dynasty fake trades at you.
Yeah.
But he was not like, so I was pulling up the dynasty, the top 500 that was updated at the beginning of the month, and he wasn't even in the top 500. So it's really hard to find some context for how to value him in a dynasty setting. I guess I'll try and find some names here, but what kind of thoughts did you have on?
He wasn't in our revised one?
No, he wasn't even.
Oh, for May, you're right.
Because you and Jesse had talked with some commenters about why isn't he on there, and
right.
it makes some sense. It was before this like tear he's currently been on, but it definitely makes his dynasty value harder to put a finger on. What have you seen so far about Garcia? Like I know he doesn't walk at all, which I don't really like, but if he's going to just hit home runs all the time, I'm not sure it matters.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, this is a little bit like when Kyle Lewis had his great month run to end 2019, right? I think it was. He didn't walk at all, and he hit for a ton of power. And one thing I said on Five and Dive all the time was like, I love Kyle Lewis, the talent, but if we're going off of what he just did, if we're going off what he just did, it's not sustainable. Mm-hmm. So it was, he hit, tell me if this sounds familiar. He hit 268, 293, 592. Now, Garcia is walking a bit more than that. Lewis walked 3 times in 75 plate appearances, but it's a similar profile. And what I kept saying was this is not sustainable. But if he's going to slug 550, or in that case 589, or in Garcia's case also or 590, whatever, then it doesn't matter. But I guess I'm skeptical on whether Garcia will slug 590 for his the rest of the way. You know what I mean? And if you slug 500, 515, even that changes the profile considerably. Now, in this down offensive environment, it's still going to be very valuable. But when I've looked at Garcia, which I did about a month into the season, and again, like a couple weeks ago when I've written about Texas for box score banner, I still come away with the same kind of thought, which is that he's striking out about 6 times for every time he walks. And I think that's I just like that doesn't feel sustainable to me. He does a ton of damage on the ball when he makes contact, but he's got it, there's some length to his swing. As much as he can make contact and it's going to go far when he does, even if you look at his advanced metrics or batted ball profile, I just don't think any of it bears out that this is likely to continue. And yeah, I mean, he's got a 32% home run per fly ball rate. That just is not, I mean, that's great. He hits the ball really hard. So like it's fair to say like that's sustainable at some level, but it's a little like, when some of these guys run, either guys who are fast and hit the ball hard and have a 450 BABIP. Yes, they have skills that make them above average at hitting, running a BABIP like that or hitting home runs at that. Like he has a skill set that allows him to do that. It doesn't mean he's going to do it forever, especially at this rate. And I wish it were like more complicated on some level, like that there was more nuance that could make a convincing case, but it's kind of just like this profile doesn't work in the long run.
Sure.
That's kind of the historical precedent.
Yeah. And another thing, you just to continue on the Kyle Lewis track, when Kyle Lewis just didn't walk at all when he first came up, that was sort of an aberration of who he had been coming up through the minors. Definitely. And since then, he has a double-digit walk rate, like in last year and this year.
Right.
Adolis Garcia just hasn't really done that, hasn't walked at any level, which is, it's fine if you do everything else well, but he's also swinging and missing a lot, which means that the batting average is not likely to stay at, the 286 level that it currently is. And then you're sort of, once everything else starts to fall, what are you really looking at? Is it only home runs? Is he still going to steal a couple bases? If the batting average is just bad, what is that going to do? And the Rangers are fine, but they're not very good. And so you're just looking, the amount of categories that you can really get from somebody like that starts to dwindle as as everything unravels.
Yeah, I just think, like, look, his launch angle is like 14 degrees. That's good. That's good for home runs. That's good for, and he's got an average exit velocity of 93 miles an hour. Those are good pairings. So I'm not trying to take anything away from what he has done. But if you look, again, I'm just trying to kind of make a more nuanced case, even though I think it really boils down to this isn't going to keep happening. But his barrel percentage is 18%. That's insane. And the question is, what happens when he starts not barreling the ball? Because he's going to make contact, he's going to swing and miss, but he's going to make contact, and it's not going to be a barrel. It's not going to be hit as hard, and it is going to be hit kind of at this kind of launch angle. These are going to be fly balls. So are you going to run a 321 BABIP on a fly ball heavy profile when you stop hitting it as hard, as consistently as he has? And again, I'm not trying to ding what he has done, what he's earned, what he's done. I think that's what DRC Plus shows, right?
It sounds like you're trying to ding it a little bit.
No. But not what he's done. It's just going forward. It doesn't. It's not something you can rely on. Again, like 41% fly ball rate. Carrying a 320 BABIP on a 41% fly ball rate is really hard to do. Especially when you're not speed. So like he's fat. He's a good defender, and like look, he's more than just what he is at the plate. He's a good defender. I think he's probably a really like a good power heavy fourth out. Look, could he be Adam Duvall? I think that's in play. Duvall has been a little bit more well-rounded offensively, but that's that's kind of what he was in Cincinnati and earlier in Atlanta. Was like a fourth outfielder, good defense with some pop when he does play. That seems in play to me.
Yeah, so it seems like it would be hard to come up with fake trades for Garcia if the comp is Adam Duvall, because based on his current line in 2021, that's probably not going to get it done.
No, and maybe that's not. I mean, look, if you look at the 2 years before though in Atlanta, he had it was 41 games and 57 games, but he hit 267, 315, 567, sorry, in 2019, 237, 301, 532 in 2020. And like, look, that 2020 line seems more feasible to me of like what this might look like. But that was a 116 WRC plus. So again, like there's value there. It's a very tenuous shape to it. And we're looking, I think Duvall is an illustrative example of what happens, like you said, when that batting average starts to dip, what happens to everything else. This year, he's at 5% walk rate, 30% strikeout rate. Do those sound familiar? Right? And then he's hitting 213, 257, 425, and that's with a 250 BABIP. And that's, again, like when you stop getting the batted ball, we call it luck a lot, but it's not. I mean, it's just like a profile of a type of batted ball event, right? When that starts falling differently, that's what's going to happen. I think the counterpoint to this is I'm looking at Duvall's batted ball profile, and he hits the ball in the air significantly more often. He's at 60% in 2019, 54% in 2020, and 53% in 2021. So he does put the ball in the air more, but it's still, I think, you can kind of adjust between Duvall and what Garcia is doing now. And I think if you don't quite go all the way down to what Duvall is because of the difference in profile, but bring it down a fair amount, you're still dealing with maybe a valuable player, but not someone you're necessarily. So I guess the idea is if you can trade him, you might want to do it now if people are buying it.
Sure. So would you rather have Garcia or Kyle Lewis?
I'd rather have Lewis.
Okay.
I looked at Lewis really quickly. Like, Lewis is really interesting because he's remained valuable, but changed the shape of that production. You know what I mean? Like, he went from a 592 slug in 2019 to a 437 in 2020, but he bumped his OBP 70 points. So it wasn't quite as so that's an 84 point drop in OPS, but it was only a 5-point drop in OPS plus because of the different offensive environment. And he, once again, this year is like he's under a 400 slug, but the offensive environment is so bad that he's still at a 111 OPS plus at 726 OPS. So, I just appreciate that he's been able to change his approach. He's kind of dealt with adversity and adapted to it, that kind of thing.
So maybe the better question is which upper level Cardinals outfielder will get traded and turn into a useful player. And maybe a side comment to that is I'm pretty pissed that between Arozarena, Garcia, that Cleveland gets Oscar Mercado from the Cardinals, and it worked out for like half a season, and then that was kind of the extent of it.
They needed to target a Cuban, seemingly. That seems to be a big change here. It's
probably a better move. I
don't know. I'm looking at the other. Justin Williams doesn't seem to be super well.
First team all name draft candidate Lars Nootbaar could be the answer.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's a God, I don't know. God bless the Dutch, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked it up, but that's probably safe. 328, 435, 586 so far this season in Double-A, and maybe more impressively, walking almost 15% of the time, striking out just over 17% of the time. So whoever trades for Lars Nootbaar could be in for some. It won't be for several years because it seems like this doesn't ever happen until after they turn 27, 28. But be on the lookout.
Yeah. But for what it's worth, he's from El Segundo, California.
Oh.
So but I'm gonna assume on the name, just that his parents are somewhere along the line
the Dutch neighborhood in El Segundo.
Right. Exactly. There are some other kind of devil magic-y players that have popped up for St. Louis this year in the minors, but I think at AAA, he's a good option certainly.
So let's talk about some pitchers that we are going from a breakout candidate to some serious stock down or arrow down on the stocks for these next few guys that we're talking about. I wanted to start with Luis Castillo because we mentioned before we started recording if we've gotten a ton of bat signal questions on Luis Castillo because coming into the season you probably had some pretty high hopes for what he would do and what he has done, and it's just been bad. For lack of a more eloquent way to put it, like he just has not been very good so far this season. 7.22 ERA, his WHIP is up near 1.8, not striking anybody out. It's just been ugly so far for Castillo, and even in dynasty leagues, he's probably a building block of your rotation. So we've been getting a lot of questions. That's another place that if you had any questions, be sure to check out the Bat Signal. I guess maybe we can just toss around some theories. Like he's potentially getting a little unlucky just with balls in play and his strand rates. But if you're giving up a ton of hits and twice as many home runs as you normally have, then you're not going to garner a lot of sympathy with unlucky on your batted ball profile. He's 1-8 also his record, which seems insane. What are your early thoughts on Castillo? Anything jumping out?
Yeah, I this was like a query I worked with Lucas Apostolaris on a while back. I was trying to find, I forget who I was looking up. It was a different pitcher, and I was trying to, I thought their problem might be that they had good enough stuff to get ahead of batters, but not to put them away. Mm-hmm. And so we ran a query that I called like a put away pitch. Or like put away percentage, which was in 2 strike counts, how often they were able to get the strikeout. And Luis Castillo at the time this was a few weeks ago, but was in the bottom 10 in the whole league, and it's just like that's. I had very stubbornly for a while not like refused to admit that Luis Castillo would be like a top tier pitcher, and I was wrong. Like he was a very good pitcher for several years, right? But my theory was always that like change up first guys, the change up is not so much a bat missing pitch, and so I just think it's harder for them to succeed at an elite level for extended periods of time, right? And he did that. But it seems like that's a little bit like it's just going to come down to how much he can get people to swing and miss. And like that just seems to be just impossible for him this year.
Yeah, the swinging strikes are way down from where they were last year and in 2019 and really any time in his career. And one thing that we noted is that guys are making a lot of contact on pitches outside the zone, so that could tie in a little bit with what you were saying on the like the 2-strike chase pitches. Like guys are just getting a bat on them now, and they're falling. So as evidenced by that, the BABIP and the WHIP numbers. So obviously the question that we get the most is, what do you do? Is he a good buy low guy?
I don't know.
my kind of stock answer to this has been, if you can get him as a 7.22 ERA and 1.78 WHIP, then yeah, I would pay a price for somebody like that.
Right.
I'm definitely not paying preseason prices for Castillo. Maybe somewhere in the middle. Like I don't think anybody with Luis Castillo on their team thinks he's a 7.22 ERA guy. So if you can get him for a little bit better than that, then I would be willing to take a shot. But it's just been so bad so far this year, and there's not a bright flashing lights pointing to why, which gives me a little bit of pause.
Yeah, not to boil everything down to the same thing I was glib about Trevor Bauer with at the top of the show. But like, have you looked at the heat map on his Savant page?
Oh, it looks like the fastballs and sinkers,
and
the sinkers
sliders,
especially, are not sinking very much.
The sinkers are like not quite middle up, but like at the high end of middle. His fastball is essentially middle in to right-handed hit, or to I don't know. It's right where you can get a barrel to it, no matter which side of the plate you're on. His changeup is in a fine spot, broadly speaking, and then his slider. There are a few different hot spots, but one of them is again the middle of the goddamn zone. So, like, again, not to be like overly reductive about it, but it seems like his problem is throwing the ball in the middle of the frickin' plate.
Yeah, I think that it's a safe diagnosis to say that if you throw it right down the middle of the plate or throw pitches that break right into the barrel, you might not be super effective in what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, it doesn't seem ideal, and it's interesting too because like his meatball percentage is up relative to 2020. It's close to the high point of his career back in 2017, 2018. But he's in the zone less frequently, but I guess when he's in the zone, it's not going any better. So yeah, I do think he can turn it around. And the weird part too is that like Cincinnati has been so good at getting the most out of pitchers. You know what I mean? So like it's weird to me that he's taken a step back as severely as he has. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I'm confident he'll figure it out, but I think there's a larger likelihood that he figures it out than this is the new normal, I guess.
Yeah. So in the dynasty sense, if you can get an offer that places him somewhere in between his current stat line and his stat line before the season, I think that that's a pretty. I would be into something like that, and then if it turns out he's hurt or something, then oh well. But you would still have a pretty nice chance for some added value, I think.
Yeah, and also just to go back to the zone, the heat maps on Savant. You pointed this out, but like if you go back to 2020, the difference across the board is huge. Like his fastballs are higher up in the zone as opposed to down and down the middle. His sinkers, they still catch a fair amount, but they're lower than they are in 2021. His sliders are completely in a different place, down on the inner corner and low, which is where you want it.
Yeah.
And even his changeups, which I think are not in a bad place now, are more concentrated to one specific area. So, I mean, obviously we're dealing with a much smaller pitch percentage in 2021 compared to 2020, but we're about 2 months through the season, so it's not that different to make that comparison one to the other.
Yeah, he's just everywhere. Like especially if you look at the sliders, they're just all over the place this year. So that it seems like something that could be tidied up, but hopefully for his sake that that's all it is, and it's not something underlying that is the culprit here. Another guy that I wanted to talk about is the future stud workhorse. He's going to go 6 innings, 7 innings once he gets out of the Rays system. And that's Blake Snell, who is striking out more guys than ever, but he's also walking more guys than ever and has pitched 6 innings just once this season. When
it was the Rockies on the road.
Yeah,
which they're atrocious on the road.
Just a murderer's row of opponents there. One stat that I noticed was that he's only faced 31 batters the third time through the order so far this season, and even like his strikeout numbers completely plummeted that third time through the order. So it's possible that it wasn't just a Rays thing, and it might be a Blake Snell thing. So that's not necessarily interesting by itself, because that's sort of how we've been treating him the last couple of years. But his decision to just kind of walk everybody has been a little bit problematic. I don't know. And he seems like in the same boat of Castillo as in a dynasty sense. He is one of those top 10 to 15 names that is young-ish and has shown the ability to have some success in the past. Where are you at with Snell now? Because we're approaching, 3 shortened seasons in a row where he's just not being able to put up the volume that you would want in a ace-type pitcher.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever going to put up the volume in that sense. I mean, even the year he won the Cy Young, it was 181 innings, which is that's a fair amount these days. But that was going on 4 years ago, and it wasn't as much then, and it's pretty light for a Cy Young workload. I mean, I've said this before on Twitter and stuff, and I've caught some flack for it, but I've never found him fun to watch actually pitch. This stuff is really good, but the way he pitches is really it's slow. He nibbles a lot. It's just it's a frustrating experience for me. And yeah, I think that he I think that it's just an aggravating experience, and I think this is kind of who he is. I don't know that he's going to walk 14% of guys all the time. I don't think that's necessarily reasonable. But yeah, I think the reality is that he's not just that much of a different guy outside of I did think there's a possibility he'd go further into games with the Padres than the Rays, just because they'd let him go further. Not necessarily that he'd be better off for it, but it does, unless I'm looking at the times through the order table wrong, it does seem like when he has gone through the order more, he's gotten better. Those 31 PA, it's only a 656 OPS.
Just hasn't struck anybody out.
Right. And I mean, so that seems like a little bit lucky. I will also say that it does seem like his problem is the first time through a little. I mean, again, second time is worse for on base percentage, but the slugging his first time through is 483. So it seems like that there's something going on in terms of his ability to navigate, and guys jumping on him early, which is potentially knocking him out of games to some capacity. And I think it's really disappointing, given that he went from Tampa to a very good offensive team. I think people were counting on a lot of wins for him, and in a year where so many pitchers are doing so well. For Snell to be, struggling so badly is tough to swallow. Again, I'm looking at kind of the heat maps compared to last year, and he's doing a lot of different stuff. So I'm curious if that's at the instruction of the Padres or kind of where that's coming from. At least compared to 2020.
And you're not going to believe this, but a lot of fastballs right down the middle.
Yeah, I mean, it is if you look at 2020, he's much higher in the zone. In terms of frequency. 2019, the same thing. He's also just his slider he's throwing much more often this year. His changeup is in a pretty different place. I don't know. He's definitely using it a little bit differently. But yeah, the pitch mix has changed substantially because he's leaning on the slider a lot more frequently, although he does, still throw all four, fastball, slider, curve, and change.
Yeah, anecdotally, it does seem that whenever you're watching Blake Snell pitch, he will have just struck out his sixth guy in the third inning, and you're like, oh wow, this is a pretty good start for him. And then you look up and it's another 3-2 count, and he already has 67 pitches, and you're like, oh wait, this won't last too long. But yeah. It just seems like he's always laboring through each start. Yeah,
I mean, this is something that I briefly touched on with Jeff in Five and Dive today, but Dylan Cease was kind of the same thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, not as many pitches overall, and he's kind of cleaned it up of late and been more efficient and been pitching deeper into games because of it. He's thrown 6. I think he's thrown at least 6 innings 3 times in his last 5 starts, which obviously Blake Snell has done once this year at all. So, yeah, I think it's a tough spot. I don't think you're going to be able to. I mean, I think the time to trade Blake Snell or, to trade him away was this offseason, because there was so much hype about him going to the Padres. People thought things would change so dramatically, and obviously they haven't. I think the best thing to do at this point is hold on to him and see if he can right the ship a little bit. If he gets like a 3-4 game run, maybe you can go back and reassess, and someone will start to buy into, remember what the hype was and buy back into it or something like that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that I would be out on Snell either, like within reason. So if you just don't expect volume, but think you can rely on him putting up some better ratios, then I would be interested in maybe picking up a Blake Snell for your dynasty team. I just, like you said, I don't think that you can ever rely on him, in quality start leagues especially, or anywhere where you're looking for big win totals or big volume in like counting stats. I think if you have a chance to get him, I think he'll be better than this, but I don't know if as long as your expectations are tempered, I think it's okay to, kind of dip your toe into a Blake Snell trade.
Yeah, and I guess it also depends on the cost again,
Sure.
as always, but kind of like what you said with Luis Castillo. If you think you can get something better, I think he's better than a 5.55 ERA, certainly. I do think he's better than a 14% walk rate. I think those things will get ironed out, but I still don't think, like you said, like you're not going to get the volume, and I don't know that the ratios are going to be particularly great either. So, I mean, I don't think they're going to be bad, but I'm not a top of the rotation guy.
Yeah. So let's talk about a couple guys that are in the high minors right now that probably could be playing for their big league teams. So this is the fourth topic that we were going to hit on. Wander Franco was featured in the 10-pack today on the site at BP, and like we're not saying anything, and I think that pretty much every write-up of Wander Franco at this point, even the one that we're referencing, is going to start the same way. Like, we're not going to tell you anything new about Franco. So one interesting part of it that I noticed was that they're experimenting with him in other defensive positions. That he's remained his entire career at shortstop, and now they're starting to branch out and get him some reps in some other spots. And I think that that's interesting for a couple reasons. First, that potentially it gives him more flexibility to play in Tampa, or to shuffle around in case that they really like Taylor Walls' defense. It also could be, more cynically, oh, look, we're trying to get him to be more flexible, and that's why it's taking us a little bit longer, and it could give them another artificial reason to keep him down a little bit more. I think my only question is, at a certain point, I wonder if you just start to stagnate a little bit when you're so much better than everyone else, and he's gone on a few slumps so far this year and is only hitting 272. So I wonder how long is too long to be in an environment that is just not necessarily challenging you in the way that you could be challenged at another level.
Yeah, I don't have a specific number, but I think there's credence to that. So first, on the multi-positional aspect, Brett Sayre has long said, when trying to kind of divine whether someone's going to get a call up, if they start playing other positions, that something is imminent, because there's no reason for him to do that unless they want him. They want his bat and are trying to find a way to get it in the lineup.
But that's so many more positions he has to work on his defense at, Craig.
Right, that's true. And then that's a good, that's a good reason to not. I would just say, like, he's got 11 strikeouts this year in AAA. If you go back to his last season, in between low A and high A, he had a total of 35. across 495 at bats plate appearances. In 103 plate appearances, he's got 11 already. So a little bit elevated there. He's an elite contact guy. Like I think I say all that to point out that like maybe he is a little bit bored. I think we saw some of this with Francisco Lindor back in the day. I mean, you would obviously have been following it. He was vocal about it, right? He was like, I don't want to be here.
I have a triple slash for you, Craig.
Yeah.
211, 297, 267. Is
that Rays shortstops?
No, that is what Ronald Acuna hit in AAA in 2018 before they called him up.
Yeah. That's another great example.
He then hit 293, 366, 552 in the majors for the rest of the season.
Yeah, that's a great example. I mean, some of these guys, they know they should be there. They're not happy they're not. And look, there's absolutely a class of people who say, like, you need to go out there and be good even when things aren't going to go your way or whatever. Dude, these are world-class athletes. Like, they want to show what they can do on the biggest stage, and when they deserve to be there, when things don't go my way, sometimes I don't give 100% effort. That's how it is. Like, I think that's human. You know what I mean? Yeah, sorry.
I think that
so things haven't been going your way for the last few years, Craig.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the big takeaway is the lack of hustle and the lack of podcasting the right way out of Craig.
I'll note too that I've mentioned this in various forums before, when I saw Casey Mize in 2019 in AA, it was very much he had a lot more in his back pocket than he was actually showing. Like, you just sort of throw his sinker, spot the slider down for most of the yard goats lineup, which was not a very good yard goats lineup. And then when it came back around to like Colton Welker, he just thrown 98 past him up in the zone. He was like the only real prospect hitter on the team.
That's incredible.
So, but it's tough to evaluate like what's actually happening here. What's actually happening here is Wander Franco still has like a 900 OPS in AAA as a 21-year-old. So just call him up. But past that, I don't know if it's AAA-itis or if it's just, again, like...
Actually, I think he just turned 20 in March, so...
He just turned 20? I have no concept of time anymore.
We got another year to work on defense.
I just assume everyone's a year older than they actually are now because of the last year.
Yeah, and I guess he's only walking 8.7% of the time, so that could, take some help.
So would you say people should buy low on Wander Franco now if they can?
Yeah, sure. If you want to buy, anytime you can buy low on Wander Franco, I think that's fair. Yeah, I expect he'll be fine when he's back in the majors. I think the Acuna example is a great one, and I think Lindor again, these guys know when they're being jobbed, kind of, and again, if he's going to go 110% and hurt himself or something like that, then it doesn't make any sense. But yeah, anyway.
Another guy in this sort of list, we can get to Jesus Sanchez. We don't have to. He's just setting AAA ablaze and is just really good. Probably will, I would imagine, be getting some run or getting a look here at some point. I don't think there are a lot of Marlin outfielders standing in his way. And we've talked about him before on this show. But one other guy that I wanted to bring up and is a little bit more complicated because he's a catcher is Adley Rutschman, who is just dominating offensively in AA and is walking almost 22% of the time while also having a over 1,000 OPS. The catching of it all does throw a wrench into it as far as his development or his promotion schedule, but it would definitely appear as though AA is not really testing him too much. And also the Orioles are terrible, so they don't really have a reason to bring him up. But how quickly would you see somebody like that's a catcher progress through the minor league system? Like he's got to be AAA bound here pretty shortly, wouldn't you think?
I'm sure Jeff will unmute in a moment. He's going to see them, I think, this week. I'm hoping.
I'm literally leaving for the park in 2 hours.
Okay, well there you go. I'm hoping they don't come. Bowie doesn't come back home until like the week of the 15th. I think they're back. Well, the 14th is a Monday, but they don't play on Mondays. But I would like to see him in Bowie. It's a much easier trip than Norfolk, so I'm hoping it's not till then. Selfishly, but like, does he deserve to be there? Yeah, I mean, he was an elite college hitter and catcher, and I mean, like, I guess there's something to be said for not, for giving these guys kind of development in the sense of like letting them maintain confidence and not throwing them directly into the fire. But like, again, I could guess that Jeff's analysis would be that he'd be a cromulent starting catcher for the Orioles right now.
Yeah, this is going to be like a Wander Franco situation where I'm guessing I'm not going to have any new information to add. I mean, he looks like a starting catcher when I saw him in short season post-draft while he had mono. I will just point out, he was a little swing and missy early in the season, but I mean, he also hasn't faced real live pitching in game situations for like
right, yeah,
almost probably 18 months, almost 2 years. Last week, he hit 636, 688, 1273 with 4 walks against 1 strikeout. Went 7 for 11 with 2 homers.
See, now if Wander Franco would do that, you gotta still produce even if you're bored. Come on, Wander, this is ridiculous. He just doesn't want it as much, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, he got off like a meh start, and he's now hitting 293, 465, 573 with more walks and strikeouts.
Yeah, Craig, I don't know if you had heard my new theory, pretty much playing off of Ben's how catching prospects have broken his heart, and mine is now that there's only ever one. They're like Highlanders, and Adley Rutschman is the one catching prospect. Everyone else is kind of like whatever. Like I'm not interested.
I'm going off who else is in the mix at this point? I don't
Francisco Alvarez is really
sure.
is testing.
Joey Bart.
No,
yeah,
Joey Bart's not. Joey Bart's not the Highlander.
No.
Francisco Alvarez.
Joey Bart is the guy that gets killed in the cold open to set up Duncan McLeod's revenge. Yeah.
Francisco Alvarez can get it. Can take over when Adley's promoted.
He's being groomed. That's for sure.
I think I've actually watched every episode of the Highlander TV series.
Oh,
I certainly have not.
Yeah.
So
my father watched it a lot when I was like it was that and Renegade, the Lorenzo Lamas series were like back to back on USA in syndication or whatever.
I think I'm glad that you can fact check my Highlander theories then. That's a plus. So I guess let's move on. We can hit this last topic and we can blow through it pretty quickly because I know that everyone has been waiting with bated breath to hear our Vanderpump thoughts. Just a handful of names that I think have seen pretty significant upticks in stock or fantasy value so far this season in the minor leagues. Jordan Walker has just been incredible so far. I think he has... even in a lot of first-year player drafts that I was in, he was like a second-round guy for a lot of them, and he's just hit the ground running in his first taste. And that's one of the reasons that I was so excited for this minor league season is to see a lot of these 2020 draft guys, and he's certainly impressed. He's on the IL right now, but he's 333, 474, 600, walking almost 18% of the time. So I think that he could be a good one. So
elite. Again, Jeff and Jarrett and Keenan talked about this on the top 50 Twitch stream yesterday, but it's like elite exit velocities also. Like the kind that like exit velocity isn't everything, but when you are in like the teens, what was he at, like 119 at something, right?
I think he 117 was. It's like, look, it's Giancarlo. It's like it's Giancarlo Stanton level exit velocity.
That should. It's not everything, but you take notice of that. Like you sit up and you take notice of that, and like it's
80 raw power,
right? And it's also
19.
Like he's 19 and he's crushing full season. He's making contact. The big thing was like no one doubted his power really, but it was like how often is he going to access it? And it's like a lot. Often.
Yeah, all the time. All the time.
So that's going to make a big difference. And look, will more advanced pitching cause him some problems or challenge him? Almost certainly. But like, he's doing it now. He's only 19. It is, again, like, that is Ohtani, Stanton area exit velocity, and he's not doing it like it wasn't like a one-off outlier. Like, he's
not like super long or super leveraged either.
Right.
Like, it's not like there's holes there to exploit, but he gets to that power pretty easily.
Yeah. And again, like, if it's not super long, and that means, if he can make the contact, again, this isn't Adolis Garcia, right? Who also has, I think he was at 114. This is a great point. Is like, Adolis Garcia's max exit velo is 114, which is good. It's really good. Jordan Walker's is better, and it's 19, and he did it in the Florida State League, which is a hard place to hit. I mean, it's not called that anymore, and he's walking a ton. I mean, like, if you want to get excited, like, yes, I think you should get excited about Jordan Walker. Because we are.
Yeah. Also, I think that even though he's been so good, you can still sort of buy high.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I think there's room for him to grow, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. I also just wanted to shout out Tyler Freeman because there hasn't been a whole lot
I'm watching Jeff on mute to see what.
There haven't been a whole lot of exciting things as a Cleveland fan. They're winning some games every now and again, but it's just been like a slog.
They're above 500, aren't they?
Yeah, okay. But I mean, what are they going to do, really?
Sure.
Tyler Freeman is somebody that I like just as a supreme contact hitter, and he's been doing that so far in Double-A. A lot of line drives, a lot of doubles. He's slugging over 500. Not a whole lot of over the fence power, but he's somebody that seems like a stereotypical like number 1, number 2 hitter that can get on base as well. So I like Tyler Freeman. I don't know if he's going to be anything. I think that he'll be a good fantasy guy, maybe even if
he can run. He can run a little bit, which I think will help a lot.
As I said on our first midseason 50 call on Twitch, video on demand available at twitch.tv/baseballperfectus.
Yes, sir.
Tyler Freeman is hitting a very empty 370.
Well, okay, but it's a 500 slug, but it's mostly the
no, I know it's a bad.
I think that's
like,
fair.
look,
but,
I don't like the swing,
agree.
But the swing's working in Double-A, so I have to. Like, look, there's a lot of guys whose swing I don't particularly like that make it work, and all you can really evaluate is, does it work? And do you think it will continue to work? And look, I don't know if it will continue to work, but the fact that it's working in Double-A is a positive marker.
Yeah, I'm a little less enthused with the BABIP guys that hit a ton of ground balls, and Tyler, he's like up around a 40% line drive rate, which is more encouraging than if he were 50 plus ground balls. So there are a couple of Reds pitchers, like Hunter Green is showing some stuff coming off of Tommy John. Nick Lodolo has been incredible, like striking out everybody. I think what we've seen so far from Hunter Green has me more encouraged than pretty much any time since he was drafted. Like, I just thought he was exclusively bullpen, and he's at least showed some stuff now that he, potentially could start. I still don't know how it's going to go long term, but it's possible. One guy that I did want to point out is Kyle Bradish. Writing the Orioles top 10 fantasy aspect, I didn't know a whole lot about Bradish like before the season at all, but then digging into some of his numbers, I was like, oh, this guy is kind of interesting. And then he started in Double-A, made 3 starts, struck out 50% of guys in almost 14 innings, and has already been promoted to Triple-A. So he could be a guy for the watch list. I don't think that he's going to be dominant, or I don't think that he's going to be an ace, but I think that he could be a back-end fantasy starter that is a little under the radar right now. I don't think he's on a lot of people's fantasy radars.
Yeah, Jeff and I were just talking about him maybe before the 5 and Dive podcast, because of Jeff is about to go see Bowie, but he's been promoted to Norfolk. But I think the issue for Bradish is he's still only he averages less than 5 innings a start right now. Yeah. He's missing a ton of bats. I mean, it's interesting, and I think he's a name to follow, and he's someone who I feel like is almost certainly unowned, even in very deep leagues. So I think for that purposes, like I think that's fine to like, throw a flag or you put him on a scout team or whatever you want to call it, or however you track your prospects. But I don't know if he's really a starter. I think he'd be a good reliever.
Well, he threw 100 innings in 2019, 18 starts, so he's right around that kind of 5-inning mark. Yeah. We'll see if he can extend longer than that, but it was just a notable name that I don't think would have very high rosterability in most leagues. So I think that's somebody you can find on the wire. I
think that's right. I do want to. You skipped over in the interest of time, which I appreciate, and I'm also going to ruin now. But Nick Pratto. With the Royals, I wanted to bring up because like I thought he looked really good in spring training, and he's absolutely crushing in Double-A this year. He's turning 23 in October, so he's not exactly like young for the level or anything, but he overhauled his swing and made a lot of changes. He has 9 home runs this year in 22 games. He had 9 home runs in 124 games in 2019 in High A. Some of that is, I believe, the Northwest Arkansas Naturals Park is highly beneficial to hitters, I think. But still, even in that capacity, he's at 308, 446, 731 in 100 plate appearance.
And has trimmed around 12 percentage points from the strikeout rate from High A as well.
Yeah, so I think, again, like, you want to put it in context to what it means to be in that league at his age in that park. But he's walking almost 19% of the time, striking out 23%. And again, there's a swing overhaul. So there's at least a narrative to put together with this kind of all of a sudden like outlandish production.
Yeah.
So I think like he's also like way post hype. He was a first rounder, obviously back in 2017. But people jumped off the wagon. So like there's a chance he's floating around, you know?
Yeah. I mean? You have to hit a lot to be a first base only prospect, and he's finally starting to do it. So yeah, I picked him up in a couple places, just by looking at what he was doing in spring training. So he is probably available. Well, he might not be right now, but he was definitely available this offseason. So that was the Dynasty 5 and Dive. I guess maybe for a little dessert, they dropped a sneak peek for Vanderpump Rules.
Yeah, this is we're Blake Snell going into the 6th inning now. Who knows what's going to happen.
It's off the rails.
How is this show still on?
Oh, that's a great question.
It is a very good question.
To your question, I believe Mark, until a week or two ago, thought it was not coming back.
Mm-hmm. How many seasons is this? I don't know why I'm.
This is the 9th season, and they've lost about half the cast.
Does Bravo ever cancel anything?
It does happen, but not super frequently. And also, they've lost
nothing off the top of my head.
Is this a bigger upset than like Supernatural running for 20 years on the CW?
They've lost about half the cast due to like racism. So it's not great. I wouldn't say they should be coming back, but they are.
Yeah. So the sneak peek had a lot of baby talk, which I guess makes sense because these people are getting older and are settling down and are experiencing those sort of life things. And like you said, it's going to be a completely different show because of the people that are not going to be on the show for said racisms. Also, Jax, farewell.
Surprisingly, not one of the racism guys.
Yeah. If you set odds for who's getting kicked off the show for racism, I kind of think that Vegas wouldn't have been taking bets because Jax would have been the pick.
A guy from Florida named Jax.
Yeah, he's riding off into the sunset. And I posed this question to you on Slack. Do you think Jax's retirement is more reminiscent in the fantasy community of David Ortiz when he retired or Ryan Braun when he retired? Like Ortiz went out with like a blaze of glory and was awesome. Ryan Braun was more petered out. And I'm leaning more toward Ryan Braun. Both have allegations, if you know what I'm saying, which you're immediately brought up.
I mean, you had the guy was working out 3 times a day.
I don't think he wanted to go home. Is another.
I mean,
issue.
Sure, but also like your muscles need to recover, man.
Well, some people are just different levels of
some people are just built different.
Yeah. So I think I was about ready for him to ride off into the sunset. So that's why I'm picking Ryan Braun. But I agree. He gets a little grating, but at the same time, he's always good to stir some shit up. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
He is. I definitely think it's Braun because I also think that Braun actually, like, when he kind of slipped away more quietly, but like what people remember is a sour taste, right? Like because of the allegations and the whole thing with the chain of custody and that kind of stuff. But like Jax, I would not say slipped away quietly. I would, but like he literally, like, I guess it's the last episode, right? It was the last or second to last episode of last season that he went up to Lisa Vanderpump, who Vanderpump is named after and whose restaurants the shows are ostensibly about, and said, "This is my show."
Yeah.
I would not say that's going quietly.
Sure, and he also is the author of my favorite line in the history of the show when he reminded everyone that he was the number one guy in this group, which is just next level. It's not Tom Sandoval.
It is.
I am the number one guy in this
group. Let
me
be clear about this. It was never. I don't think like it was never Tom Sandoval.
No.
Like no. Well, I mean,
there's only one person. There's only one person that would think it was Tom Sandoval's show.
Do you think Tom even thinks that? I think Tom has a little more awareness than that.
Yeah, I think deep down he thinks it's his show, but he knows that.
I think he wants it to be his show, but I don't think he thinks it is his show.
I'm hoping that this season isn't like a course correction for him thinking like, okay, this is my time to wrestle the show away.
Interesting. Well, yeah. So
Possible.
So your next question here was that whether Lala was now the MVP of the show. And here's I've thought a lot about this. I've talked a lot about this with my wife. I think that like this iteration of Vanderpump like needs to end. Yeah. And that like, but you could do a spin-off. They needed to, so they did a weird like cast bridge thing last season, which did not work at all.
Right.
And they just needed to not do that. Like they need Vanderpump to happen with a whole new cast, which I think is going to be hard because the whole thing was like these people were actually friends outside of the show and stuff. And that's what makes a lot of this stuff work when it does work. But like they should just do an entirely new cast. And then like they need to have like Tom, the bar right next
to show,
should be a show on its own separately. Because I actually think they're the stars of the show. Like ultimately, like they're the reason like I mostly enjoy the show. They don't bring the most drama, but like they're the stupid enjoyable part that I like.
But they'll bring some, and they'll be the ones that go over the top to dress up for the theme party. You know, into
they're driving in the motor
30s.
Sidecar thing. Yeah. No, I mean, I appreciate their energy, and they probably need someone to shake things up a little bit. Jax was always too much. Like the focus on Jax was too much. Yep. But I do think like there's it would be a totally different vibe from what Vanderpump was. But I do think that there's a successful show that is about Tom, the bar, and Tom.
Yeah, I just wanted to give Lala a shout because
she's been great. Don't get me wrong.
I can't really believe that I enjoy Lala and Rand as much as I enjoy Lala and Rand. Like that was just a complete shocker.
And to be clear, we're saying and Rand as in and Randall, not and Rand.
Sure, right.
No, I couldn't agree. I hated Lala early on. Just really anything associated with James Kennedy is not where we want to be.
Right.
Who unfortunately I believe was briefly in the preview. But yeah, no, Lala has been delightful.
Sober
I
Lala.
think she should be on Tom. So that would be good.
Yeah, bring her in as like the GM or whatever. Although I can't imagine that she wants to work all that much.
No, she doesn't. But I just want her to be there to gossip, stir shit up.
And that's what she's been great at. I comped her to Carlos Rodon a little bit and had some promise. Had some struggles.
Yep.
And now is just like, blowing people away.
Yeah, rose like a phoenix from the ashes. Yep. Here's the other thing I'm going to say about the tenor kind of these shows and stuff is that I think you could transition, if you're not going to do the tom-tom thing and you are going to focus on like this group of people, although again, really tough now that you've eliminated like half the cast, is that you needed to transition them into like junior Real Housewives.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you watch any of those. I wouldn't recommend it, but it is like there is like an age transition thing where like I just like they've aged out of the show that they're making, and so they kind of need to reformat that situation, and I think that could serve as a bridge on the network that hosts the Real Housewives shows. So
yeah. No, that's great. I think we provided a lot of ideas for Bravo if they wanted to
call us,
have us consult for them. And I think that maybe we just had a decent backdoor pilot for the Vanderpump podcast on the BP Podcast Network. So
let's do it.
So who knows?
Absolutely.
That sure felt longer than the half-hour Met segment we did this morning.
It was like 8 minutes, Jeffrey.
Yeah,
I know.
So yeah, let's wrap up there. Craig, thanks so much for jumping on. This was fun as always. It's good to have one of the Tino Godfathers back in the mix.
Well, thank you for having me, and if I may be so presumptuous, thank you to the listeners for tolerating when I'm on.
Yes, sir. And thank you, and you listeners, thank you as well. So we'll catch you next week. We'll be doing some more Dynasty stuff, and maybe we'll have a few more call-ups in the meantime, and we won't have to bitch about Wander Franco anymore. So thanks for listening. You guys are the coolest. We will catch you next time.
Clorox knows you want your clothes smelling fresh and clean, but so what happens? That's why we created Clorox fabric sanitizers to freshen up your clothes between washes, pre-treat extra stinky laundry, and make sure every last odor comes out in the wash. Clorox fabric sanitizers take care of all that and eliminate 99% of odor-causing bacteria. Plus, they're bleach-free and safe for all colors and fabrics. When it counts, trust Clorox.
Is it time for a new heating and cooling system? Turn to the experts at Griffith Energy Services and Carrier today and get 0% financing for 18 months on a new heating and cooling system. Get the comfort you deserve from Griffith Energy Services and Carrier. Visit griffithenergyservices.com today for this and other exclusive offers. That's griffithenergyservices.com. License number MDHVACR 01-2278.
Griffith Energy Services. Doggone dependable.
New hot and iced Sunrise Batch Coffee from Dunkin'. A bright and balanced, full-bodied blend brewed so you can get summering from sunrise to sunset. And even after that, because that's when you can show off those string lights you hung in the backyard. Or re-hung. Enjoy a medium, hot or iced Sunrise Batch Coffee for $2. America runs on Dunkin'. Price and participation may vary. Limited time offer. Exclusions apply.